Ah, the holidays. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose. The whole family gathered around to watch the most comforting, magical Christmas movie. Just be careful which one you pick.
A Scrooge!
"20 years ago, a movie released that would change everything. It would shape my very soul, and it would destroy everything that I once loved. The Polar Express. It remains, to this day, one of the most terrifying films ever created by human beings. And though it's been 20 years, it feels more relevant than ever. Trust me, it's a story more frightening than you could possibly imagine. But at this point, it may be too late to stop the horrors that the Polar Express has unleashed on us all. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here because the train is leaving, and I'm afraid you have no choice. You'll have to climb aboard and start at the beginning with me.
Well, you coming?
2004, the biggest IMAX theater in Orange County. I was 5 years old. Expecting, as many were, a fun and charming Christmas movie starring America's most beloved actor.
What if there was a place beyond your imagination?
But I was fully unprepared for the visual and auditory nightmare I was about to experience.
We're gonna crash!
I was horrified at almost everything. Even as a 5-year-old, I knew something was off about what I was seeing.
Void of life.
In the weeks that followed, the movie gave me terrible nightmares. Night after night, Tom Hanks' face playing over and over and over again in my head.
I would think about climbing on board.
I knew something had to change, so I avoided the movie for years and years and years. But I never truly stopped thinking about it.
I'm gonna let you slide. Hey!
My brother Evan and I have been affected by this curse for a long time. There were so many times the Polar Express came up in our home movies. Maybe it was the only way we could cope with the nightmares. Fast forward to today, he and I have been exploring big questions about the movie industry here on this channel after shooting our first indie feature film, but so far this topic has been the most confusing one of all. You tell me, how would we even begin to unpack these horrors? Okay, at this point, maybe you're asking yourself, what is he talking about? Sure, it's a little weird, but I thought everyone loved the Polar Express. But that doesn't mean that Evan and I are crazy. In fact, maybe you've even heard whispers about this topic. Over the years, the internet has started to wake up and realize that there is something else going on with this Christmas classic. There is so much to unpack. This is truly a shared trauma. So as always, it's time to talk to Evan about this.
Well, whenever people talk about the Polar Express, they almost always start with the Uncanny Valley.
And can you tell people a little bit about what that means?
So the Uncanny Valley has always fascinated me. It's basically a theory when you're creating a depiction of a human, whether it's animation or creating a robot that looks like a human or making a video game, and you're making it super lifelike. There's this weird space between being photorealistic, indistinguishable from being human, and kind of like a cute cartoony character. And there's a weird space in the middle of those two things called the Uncanny Valley, where it looks very, very close to being human, but just not quite. There's something within our subconscious that's telling us this is an imposter. This is something pretending to be human, and we should not trust this thing.
The first time I heard about the Uncanny Valley in relation to this movie was in 2017. Realizing other people were waking up to the horrors of this film gave us the confidence to finally watch it again. Just maybe not in the way you'd expect.
Come to Polar Express tomorrow, 7 p.m. at the Swope household. We will kill one person, and one person will be born.
So I don't remember exactly how they started. Basically, we decided to start hosting, I guess you'd call them Polar Express Horror Nights. That became the unofficial title.
Very normal thing for people to do.
This is, part of growing up. Basically, we would turn off all the lights, We would decorate the house with creepy screenshots from the movie. We would light candles. We would play scary music. We'd put up graven images of Tom Hanks everywhere, and we'd gather everyone around and watch the movie. We would do a Polar Express chant, naturally.
Everyone would stomp their feet on the ground like the train was coming.
Yeah. Every year we would buy a new cardboard cutout of a character from Polar Express. I don't know why they sold these things, but they were like $40 on Amazon each. And at the end of the movie night, we would have everyone sign it and write their own weird Polar Express message marking your name that you were there at the Polar Express horror night. Eventually, I think we might have gone too far with it. So I don't know whose idea it was again, but we downloaded a copy of the Polar Express and took it into an editing timeline and just started to change things. What we did, which I'm really proud of for our restraint, is we waited about halfway through the movie. We didn't change anything. So people were kind of lulled into a sense of security. Like, why would they not think they're just watching the regular movie? Yeah. But then about halfway through, we just had all hell break loose.
Yeah, it was during the scene when they're going through the like spare train car where all these broken, decrepit, lost toys are. And slowly over the course of the scene, the audio started to get deeper and deeper. The scene started to be tinted red slowly and slowly. And we said, we were very restrained. It just, over time, it started to be
slowly, very patient.
And then everything broke loose. The scenes of the people melting from Indiana Jones was overlaid.
I've never heard people laugh like people were like couldn't breathe. They were laughing so hard. And I think the rest of the changes we did were pretty minor but important. You edited it to make it look like one of the kids slipped and fell to their death.
I liked how people started to question their reality of like, wait, was that from the original, or is that something they
did they
changed?
edit that part in, or is that just the weirdness of the Polar Express?
You made me laugh so hard. I had an asthma attack.
We cursed people that day.
After the pandemic hit, we decided to stop doing Polar Express horror nights and hide away the cardboard cutouts in storage. We had become far too reckless, treating such dark energy like a complete joke. But then, before we knew it, we started to notice similar horrors happening in Hollywood, worse than ever before. And though we didn't fully understand why, I had a feeling the answer was somewhere in a certain Christmas movie. So, as scared as I am to say it, I know what has to be done. I have to figure out how the Polar Express really came to be. And that starts by finding those cardboard cutouts and finally looking behind the curtain. I started by doing what any respectable person does and watched hours upon hours of content about the Polar Express here on YouTube. And let me tell you, it is the rabbit hole to end all rabbit holes. There's been a few videos of people exploring this topic, but when I dove into the research more, I found that the story is far darker, far deeper, and far more revealing about the Hollywood industry than anyone has yet to realize. And boy, do we have some history to cover, so get your notes out. In 1985, Chris Van Allsburg published The Polar Express, a whimsical illustrated novel about a young boy who was taken to the North Pole on a magical train. It became so beloved that it caught the attention of none other than Mr. Tom Hanks. Hanks optioned the book in 1999 after reading it to his children in hopes of playing Santa Claus and the conductor in a film adaptation. For some reason, one of the author's conditions to sell the book was that it not be turned into an animated movie, because who would ever want that, of course, as he feared this would not accurately represent his characters. But okay, yeah, we could rest assured knowing that a live-action Polar Express film was on the way. But then, then, Mr. Robert Zemeckis got involved. And this is truly where the story gets interesting. I always saw Robert Zemeckis' name in the credits, but never fully processed that he was the one who caused all this. Robert Lee Zemeckis, the Chicago-born filmmaker responsible for some of the biggest American classics in cinema history. Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, Castaway, I mean, come on. Robert Zemeckis made The Polar Express? This just seems so out of left field for him. But if you look a little closer at his filmography, it starts to make a little bit more sense. You start to see a cautionary tale appear right before your very eyes. Creative use of technology was a part of Zemeckis' directing style from the very beginning. On his very first film in 1978, I Wanna Hold Your Hand, Robert blended stand-in actors with archival footage of the Beatles in a pretty unique way. He took this trick to unbelievable heights when he blended live performers and animated characters in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And of course, the entire Back to the Future trilogy is a spectacle in practical filmmaking. But then, in Forrest Gump, a more significant crack starts to form. And of course, it was with Tom Hanks right by his side.
Life was like a box of chocolates.
Zemeckis took that archival footage idea from I Wanna Hold Your Hand to a terrible new level by inserting Tom Hanks into various interviews with historical figures and using weird technological trickery to puppeteer real people who were long dead.
Hard to imagine.
Well, it's easy if you try, Dick.
Maybe this worked for you, but even as a kid, I thought this was a little bit weird. Then that leads us to Castaway, and we're almost done here. While there aren't any technological horrors happening here, I still see it as a turning point in Hollywood's history. Zemeckis decided before shooting Castaway that they would halt filming halfway through to allow for Tom Hanks to lose nearly 60 pounds. This made for a shocking smash cut in the final film to emphasize how long Hanks' character had been stuck on the island. But if it wasn't for this one idea, the world would be a better place.
Can you hear it? Can you hear the music?
He hated waiting for Tom Hanks to lose this weight. He was so sick of relying on actual human beings in his movies. Their slow, limited, fleshy potential bored him. And then, barely 2 years after Castaway released, the Polar Express went into production. There was just no turning back from here. Things were never the same. Despite the author of the original book's terms with Hanks, where animation was off the table, Zemeckis felt like a live-action version was unfeasible, claiming that it would look awful and it would cost $1 billion instead of $150 million. However, Zemeckis also thought that an animated version would suit the film poorly. What else is there? So, in order to keep his vision, an entirely new process was created, by which actors would be filmed with motion capture technology. So, yeah, here we are, motion capture. Or, as their team loves to call it, performance capture, which, by the way, was still incredibly expensive and cost $1 million per minute of footage. This technology had been utilized in small ways up until now, but never for an entire feature film. And that's for good reason. Computer animation leaders like Pixar and DreamWorks have long avoided using their computers to spin out computer-generated versions of humans. Human images tend to look flat with this technology. But old Zemeckis ignored these warnings, and in 2003, they were gearing up to make this nightmare a reality. Before the movie even started filming, Zemeckis was getting ahead of himself, seeing the beautiful potential of no restrictions while making a movie. He wanted Tom Hanks to play every single role in the movie, but this was way too much for even Tom Hanks to handle, so they whittled it down to still 5.
By way of sort of like Bob's insistence, I'm the boy himself, I'm the father, and I'm the conductor, as well as the hobo and Santa himself.
Then, production began, and with it, the most sterile, inhuman filmmaking process perhaps ever attempted.
Action! Well, you coming?
Tom would have another actor stand in for him, and he would do the lines with Tom, and then Tom would switch to the other, they would just change places, and then he would do the other character.
Is this you?
Yes.
Normal stuff. Normal stuff is happening here.
I believe.
For the performance capture process, it took nearly an hour to glue dozens upon dozens of markers onto the actors' faces. And then they were surrounded by upwards of 70 cameras at a time to capture the data of every nuanced facial movement. The actors only wore their costumes one time on one single day, which only served to scan fabric data into a computer for the animators, not to help them perform or anything.
And they did full makeup, like when we did Tom as Santa Claus, wore it for 15 minutes, we cyber scanned him, and that was it.
Not one set was built. I don't even think any props were made.
You can create any character you want in the computer and have any performer perform that part.
It's an extraordinary opportunity for actors to no longer be limited by size, weight, color of hair, gender, or race. Gender or race? Where is any of this going? They really thought they had created a process that would change movie making forever.
Performance capture process has unlimited possibilities.
If we could imagine it, we could do it.
So, after a year of torturing these actors, it was now up to the animators to deliver on this wild vision.
Then phase 2 is where you go in and you do the cinema part.
And it was only a matter of time before the horrors were finished.
Together! Have to turn them together!
Did it just blow you away when you finally saw it? Was it an entirely different world for you?
When I saw my likeness on screen, it was scary.
It was a modest box office success, but considering the original budget was $170 million, not including any marketing fees, it's not that impressive of a number. But then, Zemeckis was not done with motion capture technology. In fact, he was just getting started. He was so confident in this technology that he went on to direct yet another entirely mocap film, Beowulf, which made him fall somehow even more in love with this technology. So much so that Zemeckis created Image Movers Digital, an animation facility whose sole focus was creating motion capture films in partnership with Disney, an entire studio just for Polar Expresses. The first of which was the Jim Carrey A Christmas Carol, which all things considered is a significantly more terrifying film than The Polar Express. And neither this nor Beowulf were box office successes, as many audiences had the same reaction to this Uncanny Valley animation, and Disney executives started to panic internally about the promise of this technology. So when the next motion capture movie from Image Movers Digital, Mars Needs Moms, was being filmed, which was not even directed by Zemeckis, he was trying to pass this off to the next generation, they shut the company down mid-production, resulting in approximately 450 people losing their jobs. Mars Needs Moms, the weirdest film of the whole bunch, went on to be an enormous box office failure, the biggest one yet, losing Disney an estimated $100 to $150 million. Robert Zemeckis poured everything he had into betting that motion capture was the future of movies, but ultimately it just wasn't a success. So then what? Did Hollywood learn from his failure and stop taking big, ill-advised bets on technology that removes the humanity from movies? God, I wish so badly, because then we wouldn't even be making this video at all. Because it still wasn't the end of this story. And I mean, of course it wasn't. After a few short years making regular dramas, Zemeckis used motion capture for a significant portion of the 2018 film Welcome to Marwen, which was also a box office bomb and very scary to look at, might I add. And then he made the live-action Pinocchio movie in 2022, which is a whole other can of worms that I don't even want to get into. And then this year, this very year, he and Tom Hanks collaborated once again using a new technology that has disturbing implications for humanity, generative AI, to de-age Tom Hanks on set. I've always been attracted to technology that helps me tell a story. Metaphysics AI tools do exactly that. With Here, the film simply wouldn't work without our actors seamlessly transforming into younger versions of themselves. This film simply wouldn't work. Why? Is Robert Zemeckis just a weirdo? A crazy person ignoring reality? Honestly, after all of this analysis and research and chaos, I don't think so. I don't think that's the problem here. Because look, maybe we harped on him a little too much here. He's not some industry titan anymore. So I can't really finger wag and point to just him as being the end all be all of this issue. It's so much bigger than that. It's about what he started and what others are continuing to abuse, because these problems are only getting worse.
I think anyone watching has kind of noticed a trend in probably the last 20 years, but especially the last few years as technology has developed, where if a studio can take a shortcut and do something without humans, they would. And we've seen it, like, egregious examples of this. They are literally trying to recreate dead actors with AI and put them in movies. Like, we saw that with the Flash movie, we saw that with this Alien movie, with the Ghostbusters movie, and inherently that's a pretty sick and unethical thing to do. And they try to justify it like, oh, we got permission from their families. It's like, what about the person who's dead? You can't exactly get their permission. We're not necessarily reacting and commenting on the existence of AI or these tools. We're reacting to the real-time events of what we're seeing the studios do with it.
That's why I think it's so interesting in regards to the Polar Express. It's not a one-to-one, but I just find a lot of the ways that they talk about the movie and the process and technology to be really similar to so much of the lifeless, colorless corporate filmmaking that you see today. When you're recreating people, whether living or dead, something weird's going on, you know?
Well, I think we have to remember all this started, the Polar Express started with Robert Zemeckis was frustrated that he had to wait for Tom Hanks's body to lose weight. And he got so excited that he could just do this all in a computer. There's no way to argue that that's pro-human and pro-artist. It's almost this disdain for humanity of like, if I can create everything in a computer, why the hell do I need to hire artists? It just becomes like the machine is making decisions about what to put in the machine that's making decisions about what to put in the machine. It's like this cycle of soulless corporate nothingness that where does the human come in? And it's like if there's no humans, eventually you're going to run out of things to mimic.
As filmmakers, we know how hard it is to shoot things. And I want to continue to find ways to make that easier. But that doesn't mean you're scanning Tom Hanks in a lifeless chamber, putting on his costume one time. There's a way to do all of this stuff correctly. Even motion capture can be used effectively. Visual effects can be incredible and still be done ethically, but you have to stay grounded in reality, not the uncanny valley.
Absolutely. That's some of the beautiful things about movie making is the hard work that went into it and the heart and the real in-camera magic that they make. And if it's all created in the void, in the ones and zeros, in the Matrix, then it's like, how can I relate to this?
Yeah, even though there are like fantastic and ethical examples today, it sometimes feels like now that the technology is in the hands of studios, it might be too late. But you know what? To end this story, I have to try and reason with the dark forces to see if we can be saved. I have to try.
Look, I warned you. Okay, I warned you. I warned you that this was a scary story with dark implications for the future of humanity. I did. And now you've seen it. You've seen what happens when technology gets prioritized over people. But that doesn't mean you have to do this. Don't you see how this is all going to end? Once the genie is out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. The forces are unleashed. And when they're unleashed, they spread everywhere!
I'm sorry! I'm so sorry!
Please,